This is the Throstle Club with Norman Bartlam and Bob Downing. Well, hello and welcome to the Christmas special 2023 edition of the Throstle Club.
Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho. It's only, It seems less than a fortnight since you were doing that, Bob, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. As usual, we'll be looking back on the long and illustrious history of West Bromwich Albion with stories of a particular interest for this festive time of the year. So we've got Bob. Billy's still with us, and Simon Wright couldn't get out of the studio, so he's still here.
Yeah, locked me in for 2 weeks.
Yeah, he slept here for a fortnight.
Couldn't Bennett. So, loads of stuff coming up, really festive stuff, a lot of it quite light-hearted and light for this time of the year. We'll be boxing with Bobby Gould. We'll even be throwing cabbages at Villa fans.
Oh, what a great
idea. We'll be finding out why somebody had 32 bottles of milk on his doorstep. Good and Bennett. All will be revealed. We'll also be reliving some great moments in Albion's history. We'll be looking at a fan who saw Jeff Astle, got his photograph at Mexico in the World Cup in 1970. Fantastic memory of that. And we'll also be recalling Old Trafford in 1978 and at Wembley 1993. Great events for the Albion. All that and more on the Throstle Club. Now then, let's start with the 45th anniversary of that sensational game at Old Trafford when West Bromwich Albion beat Manchester United in that fantastic 5-3 game back in 1978. 45 years ago, can you believe that, Bob?
Yeah.
I can still hear Joel Sinstad's fabulous commentary even now.
Well, I had to listen to that because, as I said before, I was on strike. So, I mean, just not me. I mean, the entire paper was on strike, so I was a member of the National Union of Journalists, and they'd called us out. So I didn't go to that match. So I mean, I like everybody else, watched it on television. Well, saw the recording.
Saw the highlights.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting you actually admit to not being there because most Albion fans always claim that they were there. Now, there was 45,000 there that day, but if everybody who claims that they were there was probably about 200,000 there that day.
Right, yeah.
Now, one of the men who definitely was there was Brendon Batson, and I know that because I saw him playing on the pitch. And as you know, he's just published his autobiography with the help of Chris Lepofsky. And I met up with Brendon recently, and he talked about why he'd written the book in the first place.
Well, I've been pestered by my kids and grandkids about telling my story. I was a bit reluctant to begin with, but this is really a record for my family. And the other thing was, many years ago with Cyril, when he launched his book, he said quietly to me, "Why don't you write your own book, Brendon, because you've got a slightly different story to tell." So here it is. I've finally done it, and it's been a nice experience.
Yeah, it's going well.
I don't know really. I think, I should say, people have expressed interest in reading it, and the sales have gone, I think, reasonably well in a short space of time. So fingers crossed, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's going well, really. But Brendon then talked to us about the game itself, and obviously, of course, he's got some fond memories of the victory.
Oh, very fond memories. I mean, that game lives in your mind forever, really. And the thing with it, I think back about Cyril and Laurie, no longer with us. You know, they had such an integral part to play in that victory. So, yeah, it's a lot of people say it's their favourite Albion game, and it's just a pleasure being part of that team.
Can you remember what was the atmosphere like in the dressing room after that? It must have been absolutely fantastic.
Oh, it was buzzing. I think even in the Man United dressing room, I think they'll have realised that they were involved in a special game. Nobody likes to lose, but our dressing room was buzzing. I mean, we felt even at half time we equalised. We made it 3-3 just for half time, but Tony Brown had scored the equaliser and last kick of the first half. But even there, even when we were behind, we felt that we were going to win this game. And second half proved to be correct.
Mm-hmm. And some of the goals were world class, weren't they?
Well, Lenny Cantello's goal was a fantastic goal. Laurie coming in from our left, their right, going across the pitch, knocking into Cyril, who was literally parallel to the goal line on the edge of the box, and he just backheeled it. Lenny Cantello didn't have to break his stride, and he just smashed it. And good job the net was there. That ball was still been travelling. Yeah. But I think the icing on the cake was really Cyril's the 5th goal, because 4-3, you never know, 1 goal behind, you never know that they could have got equal, but that just crushed them, the 5th goal. And Cyril had been thwarted by Gary Bailey throughout the game, and that was just a fantastic goal he scored. And that pose of his was so typical of Cyril. I think that's a pose that they use on the tram here in Birmingham. So it was a great game and a great finish from a great player.
And of course, it was on TV, highlights on the telly as well. So there wasn't so much TV football in them days, was there? So the whole nation saw that the next day. And Albion was the talk of the football world, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to see 8 goals, it's unusual. You see plenty of goals, and I think you see more high-scoring goals at the moment, high-scoring games at the moment. But at the time, that 5-3. People that I spoke to afterwards said when they'd heard it, they were listening to the game, and through a half time, couldn't wait for the second half to begin, and then they thought to see a lot more goals again in the second half. But thankfully, we managed to keep the clean sheet for the second half and get the 2 goals to make it 5-3.
And the Gerald seen stats commentary.
Yeah, and he was the only one at the time that I remember making reference to the sort of racial abuse that we were getting. Yeah. And whilst it wasn't pleasant, it was something that just we ignored. Laurie Cyril, myself, and all the black players of that era as well. Just had to get on with it. But it wasn't pleasant, and the commentators won't make any reference to it. So for Gerald to make reference to it was, great credit to him to bring it to the fore.
Yeah, some good memories there from Brendon Batson, I think. The interesting thing about that side as well, they were all English, all English players with the exception of Bally Robb, who was obviously the token Scotsman there that game. And you were there.
I was there, yes. I mean, that actually was my first season as an Albion supporter, so.
Youngsters.
I get that, yeah. I mean, I had very limited perspective, and I thought this is how these games are always finished, But my number one memory was just how desperately cold it was that day. Towards the end, I don't care who scores. I just want to go. I want to get back to the car. I want to get warmed up. And that's very, very negative, I know. But that was my strongest memory. I remember the away support wasn't terribly large, and we were in those rather unpleasant low pens behind the goal. Rammed in, high fences, couldn't see very much. I think we were collectively shivering through much of the game. One memory I'll never forget is because the Man United goalkeeper was Gary Bailey then, and he came down to us because they were defending from our end, second half, and he did a little impromptu mime, trying to say, because it was 3-3, and he's like, he'd forgotten what the score was, but I thought that was a really nice thing he did. It was dramatic, but it was so cold. It really was.
so cold, but such a heartwarming result as well, I suppose, wasn't it? And Len Cantello's goal, if I recall, didn't that make Star Soccer's goal of the season? I think. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, it was interesting, really, because I mean, everybody talks about that, but it was interesting. I was with Ron Atkinson a few weeks ago at a Q&A, and people asked him obviously about the 5-3, and they said, was that the best game? And he said no. The one he remembered most of all was the game after, when they beat Bristol City 3-1 at the Hawthorns.
Oh, yes.
And that was with the snow boot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nobody had known about the snow boot. Ron had been over to Germany, I think, to Adidas, and he'd bought some of these back with him. And there was a lot of talk at the time that the match might not be on because of the frozen pitch. So Ron got Tony Brown to put a pair of these boots on and to go and do his warm-up on the pitch. And when the referee saw it, he didn't realise he got these snow boots on. So it's it's playable, perfectly playable. Some of the Bristol City players don't think so, but
no, they fell over a lot.
They fell over a lot, yeah. But to Ron, he said, 5-3 was brilliant, although he missed one of the goals. You got it for just Tony Brown a goal just before half time, but he said that the one that gave him most pleasure was that 3-1 against Bristol City.
Oh, intriguing! That the fixture list was virtually written off that day. There's maybe 3 games in the whole of the country.
That's right.
Played. Yeah. So.
Yeah. But
Snow boot made all the difference.
that's right.
Yeah.
Some of our younger listeners may not have picked up what you're saying there about Ron Atkinson missing one of the goals.
Yeah, what happened was that Albion were trailing 3-2.
Yeah.
And it was very close to half time. And Ron, because he was in they didn't have to sit in the dugout then, they sat in the stand in the director's room, in the director's box. And he was making his way back from the director's box to the dressing room to tell them, sort of keep it going. So when he gets down to the dressing room, after going through all the crowds and what have you, the players are already in there. Ron walks in and says, "Really good, lads. Now all you got to do is keep it up because we can get back into this game." Because he sort of thought it was still 3-2. He said, "We can get back into this game." And the players are looking at him a bit nonplussed. Yeah. And John Wall said, "Gaffer, what are you talking about?" He said, "Well," he says, you can get an equaliser." He said, "We already got it." He said, we got it about 3 seconds before half time. And he said, "Oh, in that case, go out and beat them."
And of course, they did go out and beat them, yeah. Now, a few stories here from fans who were there that day, and it's starting with the memory of Harry Taylor.
I took my son, he was about 12 or 13, and a mate of mine went with us. He wasn't a big football, but he's somebody to go and see Man United. And we got here, and we didn't intend to stand up with the kids. We were worried about, what it might be like stand up. So we came in my car really early. We got here, all the tickets were all sold. So we walking around the ground, went in Lou Macquarie's fish shop, and this bloke came up to us, this ticket tout, and he got a great big handful of tickets. And he went, "Tickets, lads?" I said, "How much?" He said, £10 for the 4. And I thought, blimey, that's pretty good for you on the time then. So I looked at it, it got restricted view. I said, "What's that mean?" He says, "It's just like you're looking through a perfect sheet just missed the corner flag." Didn't trust it, so we didn't buy them off him. Went all the way around. I said to my mate, "We've either got to go and stand up or go home," and he wouldn't stand up with his son. So I went back to this bloke, and he got a few tickets left. And so we looked at, he had the 4 tickets. And the seats were fantastic. They were on the halfway line. It's right what he said. It was just the corner flag, and we all know about the scoring, how it went, and it snowed, and so much excitement. Fantastic. And there must have been groups buying them off that bloke, because every time the Albion scored, we'd all just jump up, the 20 people, and then another 20 a bit further across. It was really good, yeah.
Yeah, a bit more from Harry now. He's talking with Alan Cleverly, and he met Bob and myself a little bit earlier.
That afternoon, because it's been recorded, because you can watch it every time you want to, it shows certainly the best of Laurie Cunningham. That one run down the wing is immaculate. The skill of Lenny Cantello's goal, it was goal of the season. It was a day that doesn't happen very often in your lifetime when you go and see your team win that well at good opposition, but the quality of the goals as well, apart from Bombers tapping to make it 3-3, it was fine. It was excellent. You just don't know what to say about the game because it was just perfect. It's a perfect game of football from an Albion point of view.
The amazing thing, Alan, I wasn't there either because I was on strike, and so somebody else went I was with the Mail. The most amazing thing about that, though, they finished 5-3, and when you look at the saves that Gary Baylor and Tony Godden made, it could have easily been 7-6.
Yeah. Cyril could have had 3 or 4 goals in that game. There's 2 unbelievable saves from Cyril. If you watch the video, he throws his head back in disbelief at the one save. He knocks it over the bar. You're quite right, Gary Bailey had a wonderful... that's where Bomber set up his record, if you know the record. He's the only player to score a goal against Roy Bailey, Gary Bailey's father, and Gary Bailey, father and son. He scored against both of them in First Division matches.
Yeah. I think the one moment, as you were saying, the one moment everybody remembers was that run of Laurie Cunningham.
Yes.
When he outstripped Stuart. I mean, Houston tried to trip him twice and missed him.
He wasn't good enough.
No.
He wasn't even good enough to foul him. That's how good Laurie Cunningham was.
And if you believe everybody who said they went there were about 200,000.
Indeed.
The trains would have been packed on that.
What about after the game? Did you have time for the celebration? I suppose you had to get back, didn't you?
You get back on the coaches and
Well,
you celebrate on the
Nicole,
you celebrate on the coach. You're all together. You just don't believe it almost. We're top of the league, by the way.
You were, yeah.
It was a wonderful time to be an Albion fan. Then that was like the pinnacle, if you want to put it like that.
I know a lot of people talk about the commentary and, there's things like Kenneth Wilson Albion. I think it's all over, it is now. Yeah. I always remember Gerald Sinstat when he said, "What a goal!"
Yeah.
What a goal! What a goal!
Yeah. Ali Brown, unsung hero of that team, played a wonderful part in that game in 2 or 3. He missed a couple of sitters, I have to admit, himself, but nevertheless he played a wonderful part in the goals. Very underrated player was Ali Brown, but not by the players on the pitch. If you talk to Cyril and people like that, he did my running for me and all the rest of it. Great times.
Great times indeed. Now, if you were an Albion fan that couldn't get to that game, you'd have probably been gutted, just what they say. And one fan who didn't quite get to the game here is Jim Goode.
By that time, I was going to most away matches on my motorbike, I should add. And about a month before, I'd come off and broke my ankle, but I was just about getting right. Anyway, that morning, I kept my bike in our entry, as it was. This is still down Great Worley, where I live now, And took my bike outside, come back in the house, got all my gear on. When I went out, it was covered in snow. Well, because of what's happened previously, breaking my ankle, I wouldn't risk it. So I miss it. But everybody wished that I'd been there.
So what were you thinking then when you found out what the result was?
Oh, just mad. Well, we hadn't got a cat then because I'd already kicked it out of the window for losing another match, or losing in a match. Yes, yeah.
So Jim Goode there now. Now Jim also told me of another great funny story, not related to that game, but related to another great, fabulous Albion performance back in the day in 1993 when the Albion beat Wolves 3-2.
Back in the days when we all had milkmen, my mate, Bill Walkman, his name was, he was a dingle. And of course we wouldn't see each other than a Saturday. We'd leave each other notes in the milk bottle. Anyway, it was when we beat the Wolves 3-2, and I put in the milk bottle 3-2. And he left me 32 bottles of milk. Yeah. And he did, yes. He come back and collected them later, but he left me 32 bottles of milk. Yes, yeah.
Good story, that is.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a great one, isn't it? That?
Absolutely amazing.
It's so Black Country as well.
Yeah, great. Now, one player who's never bottled out of a challenge, it was Artim Sakari. And you remember in our last programme we spoke with him and he gave us his memories of playing for West Bromwich Albion. Now, of course, he's well known for scoring for his country. Remember?
North
famous goal he scored for North Macedonia. And what did he do famously? Famous corner.
Oh, straight in
from the corner against David Seaman. When, how shall we put it politely, he put the ball over David Seaman, shall we say, in October in 2002. And obviously that's something that Artim remembers.
I'm Artim Sakari, on the Throstle club, and thank you for coming to visit me here in Skopje, in Macedonia. I have a great memory from West Bromwich Albion, and I hope soon they will be back where it belongs. Merry Christmas to Albion fans.
We can't end this conversation we're not talking about a certain goal that you scored against England.
October 16, it was 2002, Southampton.
So go on, what was it planned or not?
Okay, I'll tell a little bit story about this. Everyone was thinking that we'll lose badly that game. The guys who was leading us from UK, he was like sitting on the bus and I was sitting with him on front of the bus, and I was saying, this is really serious, you're going to lose 5-0. I said, no, you will see we talk after the match. We started really well the game. The coach did a perfect job that he put young players who wanted to run, and 3-4 players who was more experienced player that can use the brain and get results. But that was just enjoying the game, enjoying the football, because I love it football to play. We scored. I scored against the team directly from the corner. We had some joke with Gary Maxon about that goal, because he was saying like it was like windy that game that when you score. I said yeah, you can try now with the windy, try if you can score, but I do. We was laughing on that. I was training that a few times during the training here, and not just with the national team, even with the clubs, because always I train extra on free kicks and corners and doing crossing on this. And that is my third goal, scoring from the corner.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
But two of them, they are with the team in Macedonia, so it's not on that high level like it was against one of the best keeper in the world, I can say.
David Seaman.
Yeah, and it's not just like the best; he's the tallest one was, and to score from there. When Scholes was on the second post of the goal, it was really magnificent. It was perfect. So I was really happy, but I didn't enjoy much because you score and the game goes on. So you have to think about playing. I didn't think about much about that. We have 80 minutes to play. It was just like 10 minutes of the match. Yeah. And we go on playing, and we did perfectly, very well. Nobody was expecting, and it was really big celebration on that, because for the first time we get this result against biggest team in the world.
You've been a hero in Macedonia for that goal.
Well, I didn't saw the people here were celebrating that. If you ask supporters, they will let you know that I don't want to talk about myself on this thing. But, that time they were sitting on city center watching on a big screen the game, and there really was happy people that we drew for the goal, and I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, you got family and friends as well, presumably, that were watching the game. They were really excited.
Well, they was really excited. They was really, and they couldn't. Nobody could believe that we got this result against them. And after that, was talking much about the goal from the corner.
Yeah, brilliant, that isn't really something to be proud of, that. And of course, why shouldn't he talk about it, even if it was against England?
This is the Throstle Club with Norman Bartlam and Bob Downing.
Now, of course, Christmas Day football was always a great time for the clubs, and the games attracted huge crowds over the years. Albion first played a Christmas Day in 1905, and one of our keen listeners, Mark Barrett, anticipating that we'd be mentioning Christmas games, has done a bit of research, and he's unearthed a great news cutting from 1905 from the Midland Chronicle. That was your paper, wasn't it, Bob?
Yeah,
you weren't quite around.
No,
there
I wasn't around at the time. No,
1905,
thanks, Norm.
Just thought I'd make that clear for the listeners. Yeah, and the article goes on to say how satisfied the Albion directors were with that, with there being a big crowd, and it brought in gate receipts of no less than 450 quid.
Wow.
How about that?
Money.
Yeah, and there's 18,000 people there in the crowd, and they got 450 quid in. Brilliant. Albion's last Christmas Day game was in 1956 when we beat Newcastle United 1-0. And Alan and Harry, who we met earlier, were both at that game those many years ago. So the last Albion game on Christmas Day itself was in 1956, wasn't it, when you were there, Harry, and you were there, Al, weren't you? Yeah. So any memories of going out on Christmas morning? Did you resent having to go to a match on Christmas morning?
No, I was looking forward to it. This is something different. Yeah. You know, I can't think how I got there. I was on a couch. I
would have walked, and that's probably why I wasn't too happy with it, because I got all my toys to play with. You know, because 11 o'clock kick-off, I'd got to start out at 9.
That's right.
You know, so you hadn't long got out of bed and opened all your presents, and then you were getting dressed. No, there was a sense of excitement in the ground, walking up to the ground, especially, you know, excited kids, new scarves, new hats, whatever, you know, and there was that sense of excitement, but the crowd, and that was probably why it started to finish after that, because of the 13,000 in the ground.
So normally there would have been big crowds in years gone by, but that started to dwindle.
Especially against Newcastle. You know, they always had big crowds, 30-odd thousand, 40,000 against Newcastle on a normal weekend.
Yeah. What about you, Harry? What about the thought of going out on Christmas Day? You were quite happy with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was great. I think I was about 15, so yeah, I went with a couple of my mates from school and really. I remember 6 of my man, all the blokes were all smoking cigars.
Yes.
At the match. And,
Well, they all had Christmas presents.
Yeah, and there wasn't, and I don't think there was any women there. They must have been like Harrison back home cooking the dinner, you know. And we won 1-0. Ray Barlow scored the goal. Yeah. And the next day we played them away at Newcastle and lost 5-2, I think it was.
Yeah, it was 5-2. Yeah.
The interesting thing, Al, and Harry, you know, when they played on Christmas Day, I mean they played the reverse fixture on the Boxing Day, didn't they?
Yes.
So, I mean, was there any transport on Christmas Day?
Not a great deal. Not a great deal. There were special trains.
Yeah.
That was about it.
Yeah.
Well, there were very few. The odd coach, but nothing at all really.
Because I heard a story that Harry and Alan can obviously, you know, confirm this or see if it was right. There was one year when Albion played Newcastle on the Christmas Day at Newcastle. This was about 1940s. And then Albion, the reverse fixture at the Albion on the Boxing Day. And I don't know, somebody told me that at the end of the game in Newcastle, which I think there was about 40,000 there, both teams came back to West Bromwich together because they were playing the reversing, and I think they got on the train together. Now, that must have been a train that was put specially on.
Yeah, there were special trains.
Yes.
Whether I can't confirm about the teams coming on the trains together, but there were trains. It was the only way you'd have ever got to the away match back then, especially in the 40s with petrol restrictions on the coaches and everything.
What time did the Boxing Day match, the one you were talking about, you know, in '56? What time did the Boxing Day kick off?
We're back to 3 o'clock. Back to 3 o'clock. I remember many Boxing Day
But the Christmas
games.
Day ones would have been in the morning.
Yeah,
Wouldn't they?
again because, like you mentioned, there's virtually no ladies in the ground. Not that they came that much in those days, but the ones that were at home, they were cooking Christmas lunch for when you got home.
Absolutely.
Now you'd say that was all sexist today, wouldn't you? But of course, back in the day, that was the way it was, isn't it? It's almost a tradition, really. We're talking earlier about the great attendances on Christmas Day, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, I've just had a quick look at some of the Albion games, and 1946, Christmas Day 1946, which I might add is 4 days before I was born.
Oh, were you there then?
I wasn't there, no. Neither was my mother. But Albion played Newcastle United on Christmas Day at Newcastle, and they won 4-2, and there was attendance of 44,772.
Blimey.
Now, at that time, it was a reverse fixture the next day.
Yeah.
And from what I can gather, the Albion players and supporters and the Newcastle players and supporters all got on the same train to come back to West Bromwich. Because, I mean, there was no motorways. So apparently they came back on the same train. Oh. And the following day, Albion won 3-2. And the attendance, 52,701.
My God.
Which just shows, you know, that at that time, I mean, it was just after the war. I mean, it was, you know, sort of football was really getting back into the swing of things. And you look back, on the 28th of December that year, Albion played Swansea. 34,933. Oh. And that was away. That was at Swansea. Mm. You know, and then you look back again, 1948. Sheffield Wednesday, 34,881. They didn't play on the Boxing Day because it was a Sunday. Nobody played on a Sunday. Mm. So on the 27th, Albion lost 2-1 at the Hillsborough. 59,857. Oh. And it just showed you, really. I mean, and now they're talking, you know, they're talking about matches being played over the Christmas period now. I mean, I can't see us ever going back to Christmas Day.
No.
Never again.
Not even Sky would want to play on Christmas Day.
No.
Well, maybe they would.
I don't know.
Maybe they would.
They'll have an 8 o'clock kick-off on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
in the morning.
I tell you.
But that just shows you how popular football was at the time.
Yeah. Now, one set of results on a Boxing Day in particular really stand out, and it's exactly 60 years ago, this Boxing Day. That's, if you get your fingers out.
Yeah, I remember this.
It's 1963.
I remember this.
Yeah, and it's astonishing that day because there were 66 goals in 10 games. God, can you imagine that? 66 goals in 10 games. Yeah. And can you imagine what the excitement must have been like at Broadcasting House when Eamon Andrews was going to introduce Sports Report that day. And the headlines probably went something a bit like this, I suppose. 66 goals are scored in 10 games as the football world goes crackers. Fulham hit 10, Blackburn score 8, and both Stoke and Manchester United are hit for 6. All the details coming up, but first the classified football results read by Bob, James, Alexander, Gordon, Bennett, Downing.
First Division, Blackpool 1, Chelsea 5, Burnley 6, Manchester United 1, Fulham 10, Ipswich Town 1. Leicester City 2, Everton 0. That must have been boring. Liverpool 6, Stoke City 1. Nottingham Forest 3, Sheffield United 3. Sheffield Wednesday 3, Bolton Wanderers 0. West Bromwich Albion 4, Tottenham Hotspur 4. West Ham United 2, Blackburn Rovers 8. Wolverhampton Wanderers 3, Aston Villa 3.
That's mightily impressive, may I say that?
I don't think he'd have said on the telly that they might have been bored on that one.
No. I don't think they were allowed to give their own opinions.
No,
definitely not. But an astonishing set of results there.
Yeah, I mean, you just think if sort of newspapers at the time, if you're covering that game for the Argus or something like that, Albion 4, Tottenham 4. And you were getting results coming through from everybody else, and it must have been absolutely fantastic just being part of it.
It would have been a nightmare if you'd editing the Sports Argus.
Yeah.
Night, wouldn't it?
I mean, how many times would they have changed intros then on 4-4?
Fantastic.
I mean, the 10, that's easy.
Yeah.
Because by the time they got 7, it's over. 8 with Blackburn Rovers, you knew that was over. But 3-3 Forest and Sheffield United. Blackpool 1, Chelsea 5. I mean, you can see that coming. But, it must have been fantastic. I mean, to actually been there must have been great. Yeah. I wasn't there. But, again, I always miss the good games.
I miss out on the good ones, yeah. Anyway, something you probably were at. Wembley, 1993, Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah, another great Albion memory now. The playoff final from 30 years ago, and a memory of a man who scored the opening goal that day when Albion beat Port Vale at Wembley, none other than Andy Handy Hunt.
Hi, this is Andy Hunt. Merry Christmas to all you Albion fans out there listening on the Throstle Club, and we look forward to an excellent second half to the season. Well, I think I almost feel like we did the hard work in the previous 2 games, and I don't want to say that Wembley was an anti-climax, because it wasn't, but it felt easy. I guess if you watch the game, it was easy. We won it convincingly, right?
Yeah.
And I think I think that having Ozzy Ardiles as our manager, who'd been through a lot of extremely high-level games of winning the World Cup and the FA Cup and stuff like this with Spurs, we had a manager that knew how the build-up and process of that game was going to go, the Wembley final. And he was able to relieve the pressure from us, from the players, to keep it off of our shoulders and keep everything kind of light and happy. Because we could have gone into training every day with a sort of, grimace on our face and let's do this and this and this. But he kept everything fairly relaxed, and I think we knew we were going to win that game. I think we knew it. I think we knew we were going to win at Wembley.
Well, the fans certainly knew we were going to win it, especially after that sending off earlier in the game. It was one of the best games I think you say you've ever been to. So.
Oh, the best Albion games, yeah. You dream of going to Wembley. It's 23-year wait for me. So, and after that goal, I almost went over the balcony. Because we're at the front row. And yeah, I was up and almost went over that balcony. It could have been very messy.
Indeed, yeah. Well, let's move on now. And a great unique memory of this now from one of our older listeners, Rex Edwards, who's in his early 90s and counting. And he was lucky enough to be able to go to Mexico in 1970 for the World Cup. That would have been fantastic, wouldn't it? And it was even better for him that he met up with his hero, West Bromwich Albion's Jeff Astle. And he met him at a training ground there, and he still owns the photograph that he took on that day with his son Scott. Now you've got a brilliant photo here, so describe this photo then. How did it come about?
Oh, okay. Well, going every day to the Ajax Club was fairly easy for me. I didn't really have to do anything except sit there and watch, but I just did enjoy watching all of the players, from Bobby Charlton to Jeff, the whole lot. And wanted to somehow get involved with my special player, because it wasn't just somebody playing for England like Mason Mount now or somebody like that. It's just such a big thing. I mean, those players have been together for Roger Hunt and Nobby Stiles. All of them, they've been together for such a long time. A brilliant, brilliant team. There's one or two added, like Terry Cooper and that, but and for Jeff Astle to get amongst that, for me, was just wonderful. And I just wanted to get a picture of my son at the age of 8 with him there, and stood right outside. Nobody stopped me. Nobody was nasty with me or anything. They just let me stand there. And as soon as he came out, I just asked him just politely. I said, "Jeff, will you take a picture with my 8-year-old son?" And he said, "Oh, of course." And that's the result. And when I got back to the UK, I went to the Hawthorns and put it into the office to start with. And one of the officials came out and said, "Yes, they'll do it for me," and did it.
You got him to sign it?
Yeah, got him to sign it, yes. And it's now on my son's wall in Pride of Place in Ipswich, where he lives. He's age 61 now.
He must have been amazed when you came up to him at the training camp.
He wasn't so amazed. He wasn't actually. It was strange. I was. More perplexed, really. He didn't really say anything to me. He just said, "Of course I will." That's right. He was a real gentleman and lovely. And I just, one was reluctant to approach players like that. I never collected autographs or anything like that at all. And was never able to attend many away games or anything. But I just felt that I wanted that picture badly, and I got it. So he didn't say much. He was a bit taken aback. I think that was anybody from the West Midlands or in those days Warwickshire there. I mean, I think he was amazed. So that was it. For me, it was a real big deal. But for Scott, he's just a little boy, really. He was an experience he could talk about now, going back and like I am with you. But I don't think he realised how big a deal it was really at the time.
Yeah, some great memories there from Rex. And of course, at the time when something like that's going on, Bob, you don't realise how historic occasion it is, really. And to be able to look back on that, very few people can say they've met Jeff Astle in Mexico like that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a fantastic memory, and for his son, was it? Scott?
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, that's something, like everything else. That's a photograph they will treasure.
Indeed, yeah. Now, talking of older fans, once again,
why are you looking at me again?
Well, I certainly wasn't. I was looking towards Billy, actually. Yeah, talking of older fans, here's another memory from Ken Lord, who's been on our programme in the past. He's a mere youngster, really, though. He's only in his 80s. No. But he's got a great memory, which is passed down to him through the family, from his great-great-granddad from the early 1900s.
He used to tell me, when I play the Villa, course, a bit antagonistic then, as it's always been. There's no transport. They played down the villa, Perry down the villa.
Perry Bar.
Perry Bar. Yeah. And they had to go down there in open court. It's an open court. Good. And as they got near the hands of water, they were on this open court to get to Villa Park. He said I was pelted with everything. Old apples, them said the Villa fans could get a hold on. Old cabbages, things like that. And that was it. When the chair match came, and Villa came to see the Tony Lane to play them, it happened exactly the same. When they started walking through West Bromwich High Street to get to Tony Lane, they got the same reception. So eventually, the Villa thought, hang on, we're going to have this. And they found a different way of getting there. They went the back way. Then when the Albion did the same, the police then, or peelers as they call them in them days, they used to go out in, all the force, red faction, and they escorted them north to the ground.
That's brilliant, isn't it? But rivalry with the Villa obviously goes back a long way, doesn't it? And
I always thought it started when we sent them down, but obviously not.
I just hope Steve Bruce isn't listening, because he might not like the reference to the cabbages there, I don't think. Now, one of my favourite stories here about Bobby Gould, and it's told to us by the great Wayne Fereday, of something to do with that motivational technique, shall we say, of Bobby Gould.
Shall we do Bobby Gould?
Oof, yes, let's do Gouldy.
Eccentric is a word that lots of people use. What word would you use?
That's a good word. That's a good word for Bobby. I could probably. I think that's probably him in a nutshell. Eccentric, yeah. Because I will always hold him in high esteem because he's the guy who got me to the Albion. He's the guy that got me out of a horrible situation which I had at Bournemouth with Harry Redknapp, which wasn't great. But as soon as I knew it was West Brom, that was it. I wanted to go because I wanted to be there as a kid and through. When I was watching Big Cyril and Brendon and Laurie, all these guys. So all of a sudden, Bobby Gould wants me at West Brom, so I'm going. Forget it, I'm there. But obviously it wasn't the best time for the club. Didn't really matter to me because I was at the club. So, but obviously being a fan as well, I've obviously wanted the best for the club. But I'm there now as a player. Great, I always wanted that. But it wasn't the best time for the club, and everybody involved, and some of the, like you say, some of the things over the years that I remember things like when we, after the game on the Saturday, win, lose or draw, he did a lot of back then videos. Obviously it was VHS videos. He used to video the game, and we'd be in the changing room and he'd get us to watch the game. And obviously as a player, you know how you played, and you know bits of the game when you did okay and when you did wrong and when you did good things. And but Bobby he'd play the video and he'd make sure we were all quiet, and he would say, and then if you knew as a player coming up, any second there you've done something wrong, so you know it's coming, and he would literally stop the VHS, he would stop the video, and he'd come into your face and go, "What should you have done then?" He would literally face you up and say, "So what should you have done then?" And you would go, "Bobby, yeah, boss, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that, but next time, okay, I'll do that." And he used to do things like that, which at times was quite scary. I must admit it was, when he's in your face. But then sometimes it was funny. But then sometimes over the years, when I think it was Big Colin West. I think with Westy in the changing room, it was a situation like that. And I don't know if it was Westy that said to Bobby, all right, if you want to have a go, let's get the gloves on. Or Bobby said to Westy. But if it was Bobby, he must have regretted it after, because I remember they had a few little digs at each other, and Westy was quite a big lad, and I think he stuck a couple of blows on Bobby in the changing room. I remember it. I remember the time, yeah. So eccentric was a good word for
So
Bobby.
were you there at the time then? With that?
Yeah, I was there at the time.
So part of you probably wanted to sneak over what was going on in others. You'd been shocked, I suppose.
I think a lot of us, I think all of us in the changing room at the time, it was, yes, a bit of both. Shocked that, because I'm sure it was Bobby now thinking about it, saying to Westy, look, if you want to have a pop and me, come on, let's go then. And Westy obviously took the opportunity to get a bit of frustration out. And I think, obviously, when Westy caught Bobby a couple of times, we were all like, whoa, let's call this. So yeah, it was weird. It was a weird scenario. But there's been lots of them over the years in football, in the changing rooms I've been in. That was just one of them.
Well, I'm sure we could fill a whole programme of stories about Bobby Gould.
Oh, yeah. Have a Gould special.
Yeah. Now, in our last programme, we met David Butler, the youth team player back in the late 60s, and we promised you that we'd tell of his later career, which really took off in the United States. This month, it's exactly 50 years since you played your last game in England, because after Shrewsbury, because you went to Workington, and it was there in April 1974 when you played against Scunthorpe, in what turned out to be your last ever game. But presumably you didn't realise it was at the time, because there's still a few more games to go in the season.
Yeah.
But did you know you were going to be leaving at the end of the season?
Well, I think basically, I did know I was going to be sort of leaving, because that was only a loan. That was just a loan period. And what happened is, at the end of the season, Alan Durbin said, look, do you fancy going to America? He said, because they're starting a league, the North American Soccer League, and they're looking for some young players to, fill the rosters. And I said, sure, put my name down and we'll see what happens. And obviously I was sort of just helping my dad in the chip shop at Wednesbury, and basically the phone rang, and it was Seattle's agent over here in England, and basically said, would you be interested, Dave? We've got your name from the FA. Would you be interested in coming to Seattle to play in the North American Soccer League?
And you'd only been about, 20, 21 at that stage?
I was 20,
as well?
Yeah. And basically, I said, well, yeah, have I got much time to think about it? And he said, well, I think it was a Monday. And he said, yeah, think about it, because we want you on the plane on Friday. We're playing in Washington on Saturday, and we'd like you, to be there. So it went that quickly, and, if you think back, a 20-year-old packing your bags, going to Washington on your own, and basically I had to get a taxi from Washington Airport about 40 miles to the hotel and meet the team there, and that was quite an experience. And that was the start of the American adventure.
Wow, that's astonishing. No.
Yeah.
But what about your mates back home? What were they thinking?
Well, as you say,
and your parents as well.
Well, obviously, again, I suppose really, your parents think, what an opportunity, even if it doesn't last.
Yeah.
And obviously, I was with Patricia then as well.
Yeah.
And obviously, obviously she was a little bit upset, but you have to do these things in life, and.
But I would imagine as well that you're going from Workington to Seattle. I would imagine your wages were a bit better.
I think if I can remember, obviously I was still a player at Shrewsbury, obviously, but I was under contract, and I think I was earning £40 a week at Shrewsbury, and I went from £40 a week to the equivalent of £100 a week in America. So
You know,
it's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer, and obviously the first year you're there, obviously they provide you with a car, they provide you with a flat or whatever. So yeah.
So in your team then in Seattle, there were a few well-known names from England, like Mike England, for instance.
Yeah, super. I mean, you just go back to that 1977 final against the New York Cosmos. You know, who basically is quite funny because they're guys that I suppose were your sort of heroes, my sort of heroes, when you're 20-year-old and these guys are coming. Mel Machin was fullback. He was obviously manager of Man City and Norwich and an elegant footballer. Mike England, the Tottenham and former Wales manager. You know, the list goes on. A couple of guys from Bournemouth, Mickey Cave, and you know, it was a great team. A couple of Scottish lads, Jockey Scott and Gordon Wallace, and yeah, it was a nice team. We had a great team.
But the opposition, you casually mentioned to me earlier, Beckenbauer. You just mentioned him in passing, as so it's like an everyday thing, and I'm thinking, wow, you played against Beckenbauer. But we're looking at this brilliant photograph here, and there's you with Butler on the back of your shirt. Mm-hmm. And next to you in this action shot, it says, what's it say? P-E-L?
Yeah, some guy.
Pele.
Yeah.
Pele.
Some guy called Pele.
Yeah. I mean, you know, that was I played against him before in Seattle at the Memorial Stadium, but obviously playing in the final of the North American Soccer League, you know, Pele, Beckenbauer. And they had Carlos Alberto, the Brazilian fullback. There was a guy in midfield who a lot of people wouldn't know. Was a guy called Bokacevic, and he was a classy 6'3" midfielder. They had a fantastic goal scorer, Italian, called Giorgio Chinaglia.
Yeah.
And then also, again, a guy called Stevie Hunt. You know, who actually went back to Albion, didn't he, when he came back? So.
That's right.
But as you say, you know, when you start thinking about, you know, the following year, 1978, you know, Bobby Moore came to join us, and one of the most fantastic...
Your eyes are popping out here, just looking at this, Bob.
But one of the most, you know, things which I'll always remember for the rest of my life is, you know, Bobby Moore come up to me and said, look, if I get a team in England, you can come and play for me, which for me was a fantastic, you know, thing to say. But we all know, I don't think Bobby was treated how he should have been treated, you know, as the captain, and he would never apply for a job, and nobody ever took him on really. I think he did a spell at Southend, didn't he? And he ended up writing for some like Daily
Star or something or Sport,
like
wasn't it? The Sport, yeah.
So and you know, just off the cuff, you know, I played indoor against George Best when he was with LA, and you know, also I played with him indoor football. You know, it's just hard to think really of you know, the Cruyff and Neeskins.
It's like a soccer who's who. This is a world soccer who's who.
It is, you know, and I, as you know, I don't really talk about it. And like when you guys come, you know, and you start talking, it just brings back the memories, and you start reliving.
I tell you something, David. If it had been me, I'd never stop talking.
That's right. Yeah.
But as you say, it was and that's like I said to you before. That's why I just. I don't regret my decision for going there, and I think as we talk, I think you realise why. You know.
Did you ever get this sort of thing of a shirt swap?
Well, yeah. It's funny you should say that. I mean, let's face it. The final whistle goes. It's like a swarm, isn't it, round Pele and Beckenbauer? But one of the things I remember was that after that game, the final. Pele actually gave his shirt to our young left back called Jim McAllister, who was what they call a rookie. It was his first year, and he played ever so well against a guy called Tony Field. Remember him from Sheffield? He played all really well against him. He gave him his shirt, and when we went back in 2017, Jimmy hosted a barbecue for all our lads, and he was telling us that he's had to put the shirt in a vault because you think it's Pele's last competitive game. Somebody offered him $250,000 for it, so he's had to put it in a vault. And good luck to him, mate.
Yeah. It's a nice little pension, isn't it?
Just astonishing, yeah. I mean, I know Pele obviously was coming towards the end of his career. That's no doubt with Beckenbauer. But what must you have thought when you thought you were going to be playing against them? I just can't imagine it.
It's one of those things which you probably talk to other players as well. You know, when you run out onto that pitch, you don't think about who you're playing against. You just think, how we're going to play our game. So yeah, I mean, it's not till really after you finish playing and you start talking to guys like yourself, what you've done and what you've achieved and who you've played against. That's when you start thinking, bloody hell, you know. And I'll tell you a little story. The following year, I told you Bobby Moore came to join us. Pele had finished, but he was still involved in promotions. I mean, we played in New Jersey, and which again is the American football stadium, and God, they thrashed us 4-1, I think. But I walked up the stairs to the bar, and fantastic. I looked to the left, and there's our Scottish guy saying, "Drink, give me a drink, give me a drink." And I looked to the right, and there's Pele and Moro. And so I thought, I know which way I'm going. And I went to the right, and here's me in the middle, Pele here, and Bobby Moore to my right. And you can see all these eyes are transfixed on these two players, and Pele just goes, and there's a drink for me. And there, you know, you're thinking, I didn't think at the time, but now you think, God, you know, like you're here, Pele, and you're Bobby Moore. And you're thinking, I'm having, you know, with these two legends just after the game, and, you know, there's in moments like that throughout the time I was with Seattle, you know. It's crazy, but you know that's the way it went. Really amazing.
What a fabulous career there.
Yeah,
that,
it was brilliant.
David ended up having there in the United States. That's brilliant. Now, unfortunately, this isn't brilliant, but we've run out of time.
Oh dear!
It's gone really quick again, hasn't it? So we'll be back in the new year with a January programme, and it's going to be a bit of an August special in a way, I think, isn't it, Bob? Because your good mate Rob Bishop is going to be joining us.
Yeah, we're certainly hoping Rob will be able to join us in January. We had a great time.
Yeah, excellent. So thanks to you, Simon, for joining us, and from all of us, Merry Christmas
and Happy
New Year.